Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Sweet Spot, episode 185. And from the title, we are previewing another hospitality event. One of my favorite things to do. And this one, it's a first timer for me, not certainly for our guests. I'm going to bring them in. We're going to talk all about it. The Inspire USA event hosted by ILHA, the International Luxury Hotel Association. My two guests with me today, Barak Hirschowitz, president of the ILHA, and John Edelheit, co-founder of the ILHA. Barak, John, thank you so much for taking the time and checking into the Sweet Spot with me.
Thanks. Well, thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here and great to meet you.
And we're excited about it. Excited about the event. But before we get into that, I want to just start with a little bit of hospitality background. We always love to kind of start there. Hospitality is such a funky industry. People come from different brands. They come from different backgrounds. Sometimes they fall into it. Sometimes they fall into the industry with a summer job. Sometimes they're born into the industry. So I figured let's go ahead and give our Sweet Spot audience a little bit of background into your hospitality journey and what led you to the ILHA. Barak, we'll start with you and then go to John.
Well, yeah, thanks. So I started in the industry in the late 80s, early 90s. I went to Johnson & Wales. I started in culinary, as many people do in the hotel industry, and those were interesting times because back then there were really only a couple of places you get a degree in culinary arts. So it led me to travel abroad, which was great. I started just before I went overseas. I did an internship at the Grand Floridian, which, believe it or not, was still a fairly new hotel back then. And then started working abroad internationally. Moved eventually to more the hotel side of the business. I worked in South Africa for some very well-known hotel brands. Sun International. Sun International is Saul Kersner's original brand that he had when he was still based in South Africa. So that, today we know him for Atlantis and we know him for one and only hotels. But back then he had Sun International. So I worked with him. I worked for a company called Halcyon Hotels, which had luxury hotels in South Africa and actually a few up Africa as well. And I had an opportunity, I guess my sort of first push into luxury was in the late 90s. I got to help open a hotel called Bushman's Kloof in South Africa, which is a luxury safari lodge. Within a year of opening, we became a member of Relais Chateau, which was a pretty prestigious organization. And after I left, a couple of years later, the hotel went on to win Best Hotel in the World, Travel and Leisure. So, it was really a great opportunity to see the best of the best in the world. I still, to this day, think it's probably the most luxurious property I've ever stayed in, and still the best service that I've ever seen in any hotel. So it was great to be able to work in a place that had that level of luxury and guest experience. And so I think everything that I see compares to that time back then. So that's really how I fell into the luxury hotel industry, or came into the luxury hotel industry.
Well, what an incredible story and journey. One of the questions I pose all the time on this to my podcast guests is your favorite hotel that you've ever stayed in. And, to be able to work for, the number one hotel or have at one point, that's probably an easy answer to that question then. John, let's move over to you. Where's your kind of background in hospitality and brought you to ILHA?
I think it was definitely an interesting path over to the ILHA. I, originally out of law school, I actually went into the health insurance industry. And then I was the first one to implement corporate wellness programs, employee health and wellness, before it was employee health and wellness. I eventually got very passionate about options for healthcare and founded the Medical Tourism Association, which operates all over the world as the Global Trade Association. And interestingly, there's a big segment of luxury travelers in that who are traveling, who have a lot of money, travel for the best healthcare in the world, stay at luxury hotels and also engage in luxury kind of wellness activities. And so from that space, we dealt with a lot of governments, tourism boards, luxury hotels around the world. And that was a little bit of my segue, not sharing the full story of like how Barak and I met and the founding of the ILHA, but came in from kind of a different side of it. And, but very passionate about it. And you mentioned about, the comment about your favorite luxury hotel. When you say that, I feel like it always evokes in all of our minds, we get this visual of a specific hotel or specific experiences that really make us love certain properties. And I feel like that's something that the luxury side has that the other side doesn't have, where, they're so focused on these special moments in every single detail that it really, I feel like almost sears into your brains and emotions, like some of those special things. And you notice it when it's not there at properties.
Well, 100%. And that's why you hear with especially the luxury sector. I mean, you have generations sometimes going to the same property or hotel that say, my grandparents, I grew up here going to this luxury resort. My parents then brought me. Now I'm taking my kids here, and it create these deep, really in-depth connections to our guests and travelers that you're absolutely right, John. I think the luxury sector has, and it's such a privilege to be in that space because you really get to emotionally connect with your traveler there. But I love hearing both your stories because it's a parallel of what we hear all the time in hospitality. One person that went to school for hospitality and culinary, and then the other one that went to school for something completely different and found themselves. And it's the perfect mix and match, and that's what makes our industry, hospitality, so great. We've had the pleasure on this podcast. We've spoken to founders of management companies, even a couple new brands, which seem to be popping up every single day. But I believe this is the first time that we've had founders of a hospitality association. So I want to know what kind of goes through, your mind. What's the inspiration behind saying, hey, let's start this, and, and give us kind of that background story about the ILHA. John, we'll start with you.
Okay, sure. And I think what's interesting about it is probably not many people that are like, let's go start a nonprofit trade association, right? But I think you have to be passionate about wanting to bring change and wanting to bring innovation. How ILHA was born, and I'll tell my side of the story, and then Barak can share his. Is we saw this very specific fit within medical tourism, with the Medical Tourism Association, within the luxury hotel segment. And that there needed to be deeper ties and connections to the space because everything needs to be integrated. If someone's traveling for healthcare with their family and they're staying at a luxury property, like it needs to be interconnected. It can't be fragmented. And so we decided this was an area that we really needed to have deeper involvement from the luxury hotel side. And so I had reached out to Barak to speak at one of our conferences. And then I'll let Barak maybe segue in from there as we continue the line of the story.
Yeah, so I think definitely I'll bring you up to how John and I met, because we started as luxury hoteliers. For those that have known us since the beginning, I think what happened when I went to hotel school was we were taught that this is how luxury looks, this is how it smells, this is how it operates, this is how it feels, this is the we all know that vision if you were in hotel school. Even I think of like Alex Sonio, our president for Europe and Middle East. He went to Lausanne, same thing, right? So when we were talking about this, when he was in hotel school, it was marble, it was white tablecloth, it was French chefs, and pretty much that was luxury, right? So luxury was a very easy to understand, very easy to build or vision of what luxury is, and the guests expect it, right? Then the internet came along and changed everything, right? So it changed our industry and continues to change it ever since. So let's say for 300 years, luxury hospitality or luxury hotel industry looked one way. And then all of a sudden it went in a million different directions. And with that, so did the growth of the industry. So at that time, those of us who had started to reach a point in our career where we were making bigger and bigger decisions, often those becoming quite expensive decisions, we couldn't rely on the information that we learned from, let's say, the traditional associations in our country that were, the kind of associations that have been going back forever, or the schools. They were what they had taught us was starting to change. Those rules didn't work anymore. And so we started to, but the internet was coming around. Forums, I don't know if I'm sure you remember, forums were kind of a new thing back then. And so in the early 2000s, we created a forum called Luxury Hoteliers. And the idea was we invited approximately about 50 hoteliers that I knew through the industry, that were all kind of working internationally for brands, operators, asset management. Some of them were getting into asset management then. And the idea was just to kind of, crowdsource or brainstorm some best practices to take on some of these new challenges. And so Luxury Hoteliers became this forum. It was around the time LinkedIn was starting as well. So we moved on. We decided this looks like a cool tool. I'm not kidding you. When we started our group on LinkedIn, we had to tell people what it was, right? So they were like, well, what's that? I'm like, it's just a platform, but it's kind of cool for this purpose, right? So we started the group. And we started just crowdsourcing, asking questions, and it was like the forum just took off. And we were the first hospitality or travel group to ever hit 100,000 people on LinkedIn. This was quite a long time ago. And at the time, we were a top 100 group. Actually, LinkedIn asked us this. They used us. They used our group as their example at their annual conference. And so of what groups can do. And so, there's so many things, but just to give you like some simple ones from the early days, right? Back then, Chinese travelers were first starting to travel and stay in luxury hotels around the world. And many of the hoteliers didn't know how to cater for that, right? So we created one of our forum topics was we invited a couple of the hoteliers. Peter Gastinger is one of our co-founders, was at the time he just retired, but he was one of the senior people for Ritz-Carlton in Asia, based in Hong Kong, and a couple of others. And we said, like, what can we do for guests that are traveling? And I remember one of the first things that came out of that was you should put disposable slippers in the rooms, right? And here today, every time I open like a cupboard in any luxury hotel around the world and I see disposable slippers, that was like one of the first things that really it's a great reminder of like the early days of the organization. But it was things like Wi-Fi. Should we charge for Wi-Fi? All these kind of discussions. We even had I remember there was a Swiss hotelier that had like 4 or 5 ski lodges and was starting a loyalty program, and he asked for a name. And I think he got like 120 names or something in 24 hours. And he said he was able to pick like 2 or 3 names better than any agency could give him, And that's when we realized, wow, we've got some power. So at that point, a lot of the people who were quite actively involved in the forum suggested that we start an association. And we were told, I started to contact some of the existing associations and other people out there that, kind of were involved with associations. And they're like, why do you want to do that? The associations are like trying to be what you are today, right? Because back before then, associations, you couldn't only get business information from school and then later on through your company. Or if you wanted to know what other people were doing, you had to go to an association event, get the association magazine. But now we had these new online forums where you could share information, and it was a little bit more opaque. It was a little bit more transparent, and easy to get. And so, but at the same time, I think you need that connection and just structure, because we were all just volunteering our time. And that's, as John said, he invited me to speak at an event. He had a very successful travel association. The event that I attended, I think he had about 4,000 or 5,000 people at. And we were chatting afterwards, and that's when he suggested to us that we start the association, or at least to give us the structure of an association. As John mentioned, he went to law school, and so he really knew the ins and outs of that. So we were able to kind of combine the best of both worlds, which is this very large audience that we have, but then take in some of the structure of an association so that we could, really employ some people to help this thing continue to grow.
Well, it's incredible foresight to see. LinkedIn in the early days, I remember that was just a big job board for a lot of people. For you, so for you to see the foresight to say, hey, let's use this as open forum. Let's stop. John, you mentioned fragmentation of the industry sometimes, and silos that we sometimes find ourselves in, but to exchange those ideas, because the luxury traveler today is truly international, and the luxury segment So to make sure that you're sharing those ideas, seeing those trends, and I'm sure a lot of those get brought up at the what we're previewing today, the Inspire USA event that we're going to turn our attention to. December 10th and 11th, 2025 marks the 16th edition. It's going to mark the first edition that I will be going there. I'm almost positive you guys have been at every single one. Maybe talk us through the evolution of what year one looks like in comparison to year 16 and what we have in store for in Vegas this year.
Cool. Well, John, you were pretty heavily involved in year one, so let's give you the start on that one.
No, I mean, I think year one was interesting. I forget what city that took place in, Barak, but DC. Okay, because I remember Orlando, we had the elephant. We had a 10,000-pound elephant come in the room.
Oh, wow. All right.
Her name was Roxy. And that was a theme around the elephant in the room. The industry was this topic. But, when we started, it was, ILHA, was built out at the same time as we were holding our medical tourism conference, because part of the purpose of that was to lend the expertise of, running a trade show is not easy. The executive producers, the management, the space, there's a huge investment in organizing it to launch it. And so, it's always exciting and stressful when you're in events because it's not just, from the first event, I feel like is the hardest, but at the same time, as you grow, I almost feel like there's more pressure in year 16 than previous years because you always have to be better. Right? You've got to bring in, better speakers. You have to have growth. You have to really dive into innovation and what people want. So the first year, it was a smaller event, but great in the fact that it's new, right? So people come, everyone's passionate. And every year we've really striven to, grow and make the attendees more diverse, bring in always better speakers, and stay on top of what's going on in luxury hotels and travel all around the world so people can get everything. Because like you said, is back in the day, I feel like luxury travel was almost like very siloed in the type of people that would travel. And now it's a very diverse industry. I'm sure there's people who still potentially don't understand it because you also have segments of luxury that like where wealthy people can't afford those luxury hotels because there's all these different segments going. What I'm excited about is just, some of the niche in our events going forward, focusing on all these, areas of personal experience and the breadth of where we're seeing luxury go. But I'll turn it over to Barak.
Yeah. So, and although our event was quite small, as John said, at the first event, it was actually a large event. So what happened was, and this is the benefit of partnerships, right? So by meeting John, they already had 4,500 people coming to their travel conference. So he gave us space and the expertise and the lift to be able to build a co-located show within his show. So the amazing thing was that even though our show was a segment of his, a smaller part of his show, and we did that for about 3 years before we were able to kind of really have the size to go out on our own. But those first couple of years were great because people who attended the event, for them, I mean, they were able to attend basically 2 events in one. We had some really high-powered, high-level speakers because of the size of John's event. And that really gave us a lot of clout in the early days. So, I can't thank John enough for taking us and helping us have kind of those training wheels in the early days and make us, we were able to bat a lot bigger than we were at that time. So that was great. I think it really helped us.
And Brock, I just had the flashback to, I think it was after the 3 years, Brock said, "Hey, listen, we need to be in a luxury hotel now," because we were doing it in convention centers. Right?
Yes.
The luxury hotel conference can't really be in a convention center.
Although I say that, and now it's interesting because and I know the topic of this podcast is on the Inspire USA, but I'd like to mention that we Inspire Europe is returning for its 3rd year, and it's actually next month in November. So it'll be the 12th and the 13th in Prague, and we're very excited because Prague doesn't normally get larger conference. They're obviously it's a very, very busy tourism city, probably one of the best and busiest tourist cities in Europe. But they don't get a lot of meetings there because large meetings there because of the hotels are quite small. And so for us, even just to find a hotel that could hold more than a couple of hundred people was difficult. So we partnered with with the Park Hyatt there. However, the event is actually taking place in the Czech National Bank headquarters Congress Center. So it's their former stock exchange, commodities exchange, which is the most beautiful you can imagine. The bank uses it. Moody's just had their European conference there. So it's this very beautiful royal building, and it's right across the street from the hotel. So we're very excited to be having that there. But yeah, and that's only because there just wasn't a capacity for us there in luxury hotels. But fortunately, in the U.S. there is, and so we're back in Vegas again this year at Resorts World, and we're really looking forward to that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And John, to your comment, you say bigger and better. So I'm expecting 2 elephants this year in Vegas. But
I don't know if they'll let us in the convention center. When we did in Orlando, our executive producer thought we were crazy, and it took about a couple calls over a month, and she was like, "Oh, you're serious?" And then 2 weeks later, she called back and said, "You won't believe it, Jonathan, but there's an elephant sanctuary outside of Orlando, and we can get the elephant." And the convention center said, "We've never had a request like this before," but then they approved it.
Hey, there you go. Anything can, especially in Vegas too, anything can happen. So let's try to make it happen. But I do want to talk to you about that. Location is everything in hospitality when you're talking hotels, but the same can be true with a successful hospitality event returning to Vegas this year. Barak, why and maybe you can speak specifically to Resorts World. Why was this makes the perfect venue for Inspire USA this year?
Yeah, so we had a wonderful event last year in Las Vegas. We were a few years ago, we were at the Four Seasons Las Vegas, which we loved. It was a great event. We just outgrew the space that they have there. Vegas is Vegas is one of those places where when you grow, if you get too big, if you get too big for the regular hotels, you still have to get a little bit larger to get into the very big spaces. So it's kind of awkward, and it can be tricky to find the right space. And last year we did with the Fontainebleau. We were very excited to be one of their first events from their opening, and we really enjoyed it. We try to change it up every year just to have something a little bit different. But Las Vegas was so successful for us that people just felt we've never kept it in the same place 2 years in a row. We've always moved it kind of East Coast, West Coast. And I chatted, and so we decided to we loved it. It was just so great being in Vegas, and it was easy for people to get to. And so we decided to look around, see what was there. And the weeks that we normally would do it at the Fontainebleau had already been booked from a year earlier. So we knew we were going to have to be in a different location. Went over to Resorts World, checked it out. And while we were there, Carnival Cruise Line was actually having a conference there. And Arnold Donald, who used to be the previous CEO, had actually been a speaker at one of our conferences previously. And so I met a couple of his people there, and they said, "Oh, come in and have a look around." And the space was perfect for us. So we approached them, and we're very excited. It's kind of a fun space because the area that we're in it's there, there's the normal convention side, and then there's the part where we are is kind of like where a lot of the restaurants and things are. So it's got a very engaged feel. Often I think you feel in meeting spaces like you could be anywhere in the world. Meeting spaces tend to look a lot similar. What I'm very proud of this year is that both of our events, our one in Prague and the one in Las Vegas, they don't feel like they're in convention space. So the space, for instance, that we're in is it's kind of multi-floor, very unique space, but it's also got views, full floor to ceiling. Instead of looking at banqueting walls, we're looking at floor to ceiling views of the Strip. So very excited about that.
Yeah, you can't get much better than that. And that's the beauty of having those connections made, right? You might have a connection having a conference or convention in the hotel next door, and you can go ahead and poke your head in and maybe see if it's right for your association. So Very cool. John, any thoughts on returning back to Vegas this year?
I'm excited to return back to Vegas, and I'm also excited. While the Fontainebleau Blue is a beautiful property just opened, I think a lot of our attendees also they want to experience other luxury hotels. They want to see everything that they have, from the rooms to, like, just all the different aspects of it. So I think it's just cool to be able to move around and showcase that. And I think the thing that excites me the most is we really created this special place where the VIPs in the industry, the owners, the asset managers, the hospitality management companies, the GMs can come together in like kind of an intimate group, and share innovation and connect. And I think we've fostered a really great environment where it's not in any way cliquish. It's like you can, you could be standing there and meet the CEO of Carnival Cruise Lines or Virgin Hotels, or the owners, someone who owns 100 hotels, and just like a normal person, and you can have a conversation. And that's one thing I really love about our show is, we'll participate in shows in the hotel space, but I feel like there's these big exhibitions where you're just meeting exhibitors. It's mid-level people, and you're learning about products, but there aren't decision makers. And I just love the fact that we bring those decision makers that kind of share what they're doing that's special, and that we can kind of impact the industry, but bring it together in more of an intimate setting. And we've also always tried to really control that while we have sponsors, that it's a limited number of sponsors, that it's the right sponsors, and that there's those right connections take place.
So
Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry, John, I was going to jump in. I'd also just feel like this is a good time to just a big shout out to Encore and Cvent, our event partners. They, well, obviously Cvent has, they do all of our, our ticketing and registration, and they've made that really easy. But Encore, they have been supporting us over the years with just amazing, innovative event tech. But I try to push the boundaries a little bit every year and try to think outside the box on how we can do this. Last year, we wanted all stages in one. I think for us, when we can speak to this, I think, it really lends to networking when you can keep people in the same area. And I think one of the problems with events and event spaces is often you're spread out all over different places. So we pushed them last year, or not pushed them, we challenged them last year to come up with ways to keep everybody in the same space. And so they created these stages within spaces, so that you never had to leave the main space to go to any meeting space. And it meant doing something that was very unusual, and it was very successful. And so when we met this year, they were like, what are you going to do for us this year? What's the challenge for this year? So I said, well, this year we're going to, I said, to be honest, conferences are great and they're really important. And we do try to keep ours limited. We're not trying to be an expo, but at the same time, most people can't go to them, right? And we have to be respectful that our audience and our community, most of them are not going to be able to attend this event, right? I mean, you have 500,000 people that are in one way or another connecting with you and your content and what you guys do and participating. There's no way. So what we do is we give away everything. All of our content's given away. It's all recorded and it's all shared for free to everyone that's out there that wants it. We've always done that. And so this year, to make that easier, our challenge to Encore and Helen and Brad from Encore, who have really, and their teams, was to create stages that were actually recording studios. So this year, all the stages are actually recording studios, and they've built them to look like TV studios. So and also I said, we don't want anyone to feel like when you have multiple stages, there's always like, oh, we want to be on that stage or this stage. I said, each stage has to stand on its own at its own level, so that when somebody speaks, whether they're in, the bigger room, I guess you could say, or the smaller room. So we took these unique spaces that they created and we really built, like, for instance, to me, the one that's standout is it's a full recording studio in kind of a converted, they use it as meeting space, but it's a converted luxury retail space that's right next to us. But it's all glass. So people from so while there were going to be, it has seating as a stage would normally have, but it's built like a TV studio and it's all glass and you can see it from across the mall of Resorts World. So as people are at restaurants and shops, they're going to kind of that Times Square effect where you're in Times Square and you watch them shooting TV shows. It's going to look like that. So we're really excited about that part of it this year.
Well, it's so cool. Another example of you guys breaking down barriers and silos again to give that content out and share that with everyone, especially, I mean, right now we are at a really unique time in our industry where, I've talked about it on the podcast before about, I think hoteliers are yeah, I'll create a new term here, like FOMOT, which is like the fear of missing out on technology. And they are really, really nervous about, am I implementing technology enough or are my competitors ahead of me? So these intimate settings that you're talking about, like Inspire USA, these are great forums and opportunities for hoteliers to talk about the challenges that they're having, the wins that they're having, and actually get a better sense and calibrate where they sit in trends, issues, and challenges that they're having in the hospitality space. And that's what we've craved and missed so much when events kind of disappeared on us a couple of years ago. So really excited to do that. And, looking at the speaker list for the event, it's really a who's who in luxury hospitality. We could almost have an entire episode based on this agenda that I've seen so far. But Barak, John, what sessions are you most excited about seeing in this year's educational programming? Barak, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm not going to fall into that trap of answering that question with these old people. But
Sure.
I think it's important to kind of set for those people I think for people who haven't been to Inspire, let me tell you what I think sets us apart that's different, right? So there are a lot of events out there and we partner with many of them, right? And they're all, most of them are longer established than us, I would say. Some of them are newer. But what sets us apart is firstly, that we have this advantage of, because we have this huge online audience, we don't need our events to be. So for us, we always host the event at the end. Our event is always, this Inspire in Las Vegas, this event is always held at the end of the year. It's held right at, anything about hotel life cycle, it's held right after Thanksgiving, but right before the Christmas holidays start. Right after ILTM. And so what happens is there's this weird thing like the year is done. It's finished. Everything you've done for the year is behind you. If you work for any company of any kind, you're done. I mean, obviously, if you're in operations, you're about to get hit with Christmas, but generally it's that quiet period where you can say the books are closed, everything's done, and we're about to go on vacation. So we catch everyone at I feel like I attend a lot of conferences and I feel like you're rushing from one to the next. We have got this energy, usually I was thinking over the years, the Eden Rock and the Biltmore and all the Christmas decorations already up. And there's just this, and the Hanukkah, just all the seasonal decorations are up and the vibe is in. And so what happens is people come there and they're in this mood already, okay, I can breathe and I can actually focus and have a good time. The second thing that sets us apart is that we started this organization. Everyone told us in the beginning that you need to be specific. What's your focus? I think our hardest thing that we had in the beginning was trying to get people to understand that we're not. We're a little bit of everything and not one thing. And there's a reason for that. So this is the one event that you can come in and you can meet and sit in front of people who are very, very high level asset managers, people who are involved, who typically only go to real estate conferences or investment conferences. They don't go to operational conferences. They don't go to tech conferences. They don't go to food and beverage conferences. They don't go to wellness conferences. They don't go to sales and marketing events like ILTM, right? Then you have the same people, heads of brands, who only go to those kind of, WTM, ITB type events. Then you have people who are very senior, but only go to technology events, right? And so we can go down the line. But the thing is that our industry is really split into, I would say, design, investment, and operations. The design, investment, and sort of asset side, real estate side of the business. Then there's the ops side of the business, and then there's the marketing side of the business. If I had to generalize, right? So I think most events fall into one of those three categories. And depending on what their level is, even if they're very senior, they tend to go to those events in their category. So it was very hard to convince them to come to something that maybe only had a little bit in their category. But when they came, they got to meet people that they don't normally meet, but at very high levels. But they also got to learn stuff. There was a time you could be in the real estate side of the business and not need to know what's going on in marketing or investment, in ops. And vice versa. You could be in marketing and not really have to know what goes on in real estate. But the industry has been changing so fast and continues to just accelerate that if you don't have your finger on the pulse of everything, then you are not going to be able to make those big financial decisions in your category. And so this event is the only event that I know of that brings together very, very high level people across each category. So you may come here and go, "Oh, there's not enough for me. There's only a few things on investment here, and I only go to investment conferences." You better come to this one, because it's for those that do come here and they come every year. They say, "Okay, now I understand." It's like a finishing school. It's just, you're going to start that new year in a few weeks with kind of a better, more well-rounded vision of what's going on in the industry than just what they tell you at the, in your siloed part of the industry. So that's really cool. The other thing is, it's really it's not, we kind of limit how big it gets, because it's the level of people we have don't tend to come to expo type events, and they love to network with each other and just hang out with each other. And so we keep it very small by that standard of events, just so that they can network, and they love it, and they come back and they see each other once a year and stuff like that. So that's really cool, and that's different. And then the last thing I'd say is, John kind of touched on it, our partners, our supporters, our entire organization is supported by sponsors and partners. But we've realized that it's not just money that they give us. They actually give us like the expertise to run. We're expected today as hoteliers to know everything about everything. And that changes every month what the guests want, right? It goes from, this is innovative, to like, you better have it, right? And so
we have an iPod dock still, and on your alarm clocks, right? And it's like, wow, that was great, and now all of a sudden it's
yeah. So they don't compare you to the other hotels anymore. They compare you to their homes. So if they use Netflix at home and they love to watch the show, and they come stay in your hotel and they can't easily put Netflix on the TV. Now think about this. That was something that was not important maybe 2 years ago. Okay. And so what we talk to them about is, you need to know what is, I'm actually giving a talk about this next week, but in Texas, but we help them identify, I think we've learned over the years, is what's innovative versus what is now sort of expected to what's mandatory. And that changes. So think of coffee, like you could give, no one cared what coffee you gave in a luxury hotel room, let's say 6 years ago, right? Maybe earlier. Then some hotels started giving great coffee. Today, if you don't have an espresso machine in your room, they're not happy, right? So think about that, like how quickly that goes from, and that's because they have them at home. So they're like, well, if we have this at home, why can't you have this in a luxury hotel room? So beyond the fact that hotel rooms are showrooms, they're also being compared to people's homes. So that's where our organization really helps. But I think also just the partners, the support sponsors, we stop looking at them as vendors, and we start looking at them as experts at what they do, right? Who better to tell you what's going on in the coffee industry and what the consumer demands than the top coffee companies in the world? We've also, you'll probably notice something a little bit different for us. We don't really have an expo. We could have very easily with with an audience the size we have, you could easily have an expo, but we chose not to do it because it's one of the reasons when you grow a large audience, you really have to be, you need to respect their time, and you can't over advertise to them. That's how we grew. And so what we did instead was we found partners that we thought were the best, the business. And our event is like a celebration for them. So they all come, and you won't see competing partners there. You see our partners. So we try to have one partner in each space. I gave some examples earlier. So I think that some of the big expos are great because they can show you everything that's out there. But when you come to our event, you're just going to see the preferred partners of our organization. And it's interesting, I think, because we've spent time curating them, and they're great companies. And at the same time, like I said, it's a very if you're in the luxury hotel industry, it's a great event to come and sit in front of some people that are very, very high level that you wouldn't normally get to meet. They're not in and out, is what I mean. They're not just popping in, doing their session and going. They're hanging out. So we create the space for that.
Ryan, you had mentioned something before about tech, and I think it's important because one thing I love about the luxury segment is that they invest, right? And they're looking at the most advanced tech and the most, the best experience they can give. And I notice it because I always stay at different luxury hotels. I don't stick to one brand because I want to see what's going on no matter where I travel, Latin America, Asia, Middle East. And then you see stuff you love, and then you go to another hotel and you're like, oh, this is so frustrating, right? Like, especially if stuff you can do with your phone. But also, I was recently at a show. I won't say what show it is, but like big hotel hospitality tech show, and and there was all different tech there. Like from the robot making coffee and espressos and cappuccino to other things. And I was talking, and I was like, going through and saying like, oh, this would be amazing. Like if this was at a hotel, like wouldn't be just cool for me, but like my kids, anyone with family members would love a robot making their cappuccinos. And I'll sometimes talk to go around to look what's innovative, what would be good for the luxury space, and talk to them. And it's funny because how's your adoption going? And they'll be like, well, it's not, we're having a hard time penetrating the hotel space. And it's like, who are you selling to? And they'll be like, well, we're selling to, they'll throw out the normal brands like mid-market, right? Or lower market. And I'll be like, well, have you talked to the luxury side? And they'll be like, no. And I'll be like, but you realize they're the ones investing in all this new cool stuff where mid-market and the lower market, they're not making investments in that stuff. And I think it's important if you're doing something innovative in technology or just innovative in the hotel space. The luxury hotels are very successful post-pandemic. Revenue's gone up. Everybody's spending money. There's different segments. These are the groups that are willing to push the edge on innovation. And then the mid-market, the others are looking at what luxury. Everyone follows luxury to see what they're doing. For me, an exciting thing for the upcoming conference is one of the sessions on longevity. Everybody says they do wellness. And I think, like every hotel, and then you don't know what true is wellness or well-being, because every hotel is doing something very specific, and sometimes it's not defined. And I think we have some really great brands and some innovators coming to speak. And I think there's going to be this big change in the industry about it's going to go from maybe general well-being to there's going to be a niche of very, very serious, where it's people looking at, how do I live longer? How do I maybe my quality of life? So maybe I'm 70, but I'm 50, a 50-year-old, in the 70-year-old body. Reverse aging, reverse disease. We're starting to see a lot of luxury properties around the world roll out stem cells to reverse disease and reverse aging. I went through stem cells about a year ago, and my biological age reduced by 7 years. And we're seeing this huge investment in properties now, bringing clinics in and looking at, mixing, I wouldn't say healthcare, right? You're not coming and, and getting something where, oh, my knee hurts or I'm sick. It's more of, I want to know what's going on in my entire body. And I want all the most cutting edge, supplements or tests or things where I can learn how to reverse aging, reverse diseases, live a better life for me or my family members. And, being at the front of it. And in a lot of these conversations, as these projects are being developed, are in the conceptual phase, I'm super excited because I think we're going to see this wave of a lot of longevity, serious longevity, pop up in luxury hotels around the world. It's already starting, but the wave's coming. And then projects get launched around true, serious, intense well-being. And it could be a mix of Western medicine and Eastern medicine. Um, and I think that also what we're seeing is people realize they're not getting this from their doctor. They're not getting it from, if they have insurance, insurance isn't really covering anything. And so what they're looking at is, where can I go take a vacation, but at the same time get this like complete check-in. And then there's another segment of it that I think that, depending on the segment of the guest and the wealth, right? There's a virtue signaling of like, you know what? I just spent 25 grand for this, right? I just went to this luxury hotel and I spent 50 grand for this experience. And now I'm going to live longer, and my family's going to live longer, and we're going to live healthier. But I'm excited to it because I want to go stay at these properties. I want to go through these experiences.
Well, it's then yeah. Go ahead, Barak.
Wow. No. I was just going to say it's very exciting. So we have, and John's, I think, introduced us to some amazing. So, if you're not able to come to the event, certainly keep following us. We've learned a lot about longevity and how it's moving. Some real examples like Clinique La Prairie from Switzerland, for instance, one of the original longevity institutes. Not many people know this. It's what's the cost to stay there, John, for a week?
Yeah, I feel like I could be wrong. Like it could be like 40, 50,000. It's not.
Yeah, it's in the tens of thousands to stay there for a week, I believe. And they've just opened. They've opened in Dubai, in a hotel in Dubai. They've opened. They're opening in Saudi, in China, in Thailand, all in partnerships with luxury hotels. And these are people will pay to travel to these longevity institutes that are now being built into luxury hotels. So that's a really exciting part of it. And then just to kind of pivot back to the question that you were asking about, some of the sessions coming up and who are the speakers. We have, every year our team really knock it out the park with speakers, but the lineup this year is the who's who of everyone. So whether it's on the investment side, on the finance side, we've got John Fareed, Dan Peak, we've got Glinda Powell, we've got Jonathan Fallick, all these people that are, I don't know if you check out our agenda, but they're all like the heads of, leading companies on the capital, on the real estate side of the industry. And then, of course, big management companies. Walter Eisenberg's back again this year with us, for CEO of Sage, and a lot of the big management companies. We have the president of Abridge for Europe speaking in Europe. And so we have, really the who's who on not just the brand side. Of course, Horst Schulze is going to be with us this year, one of the co-founders of Ritz-Carlton, an iconic hotelier if there's ever one. And so we have, just it's hard to pinpoint specific sessions. But if you wanted to kind of like see some of the diversity of sessions we have and how wide ranging it is, we'll be talking about like investment. Obviously we know there's headwinds, right? In the real estate side of the industry right now, with capital markets being what they are. And, we're at the top of a long time growth in hospitality. So we're starting to deal with some of those headwinds. So how we could turn those headwinds into opportunity, but we have literally like the biggest people in industry speaking about that, right? So the who's who. Then you kind of flip to like, sports tourism is a really big thing. I've traveled for sport. I'm a marathon runner, so I do a lot of that kind of thing. So we have like, it's just really interesting because we have like a session on how hotels are starting. And obviously Vegas is a perfect example with Formula One. So one of our partners, ADA Cosmetics, I don't know if you know this, but ADA Cosmetics is part of BWT, which is the owners of the Alpine Formula One team. So they are, going to be talking to us. We have Confirm 360, who they're providers. I don't know if many people know this, but they're behind some of the biggest concierge companies around there. Like when you go to one of those concierge companies and you say, hey, I need tickets for Taylor Swift front row, can you get them? They're the ones that actually get those tickets. And so Confirm 360 are actually partnering with us this year because they used to really just do this for elite concierge services, but now they've started to extend it to the hotel industry. And especially now that guests are relying more and more on the hotels for coming up with this kind of stuff. And so they're doing an activation for us where they're going to give our attendees an opportunity to go to the stadium, the Raiders Stadium, and take a tour, a back tour of it and things like that. So that's very, very cool. We have, as Jonathan mentioned, we talk about things like wellness. Technology is obviously huge. So we have a lot of sessions on that side. F&B, I mean, for most of these investment people who attend, they rarely have F&B sessions, you know? So for them, they're picking up on stuff that's like sustainability and F&B and things that they maybe wouldn't connect with at other conferences. So we'll be talking about, obviously, like the big labor challenges and some of the trends, branded luxury. We try to look at, the advantage of being at the end of the year is we look at what people have spoken about already, and then we kind of look at what's really coming in. And I'm going to tell you, like, I have something personal every year that I kind of take on that I think just from our big picture perspective as the president, like, what is something that's like right now, like this year, that people haven't quite clicked with yet? And for me, that message, and like I said, I'm speaking about it next year next week at a vendor conference in Texas is, and I spoke recently at a conference I was invited to speak at the fitness industry CEO summit, which is really unusual for me to be there. And they wanted hospitality in there. And it's along the same lines, which is really, you know, guests are now expecting this kind of stuff, right? Like, I think fitness and wellness, this is the year that changes, right? I think most guests are not happy anymore with your crappy gym. They're not happy with crappy gym equipment. They want classes in the hotels. They want things like this. And so we're actually partnering with some of the biggest fitness organizations, not just equipment makers, but actually gym companies too. There's always going to be the innovators like, you know, Equinox and these guys who partner with these gyms, the Epic in Miami, who has, you know, a gym with classes, and One Hotels, and those brands that they've been in it already. But for everybody else out there, you know, this is the thing where the guests are now starting. It's the Wi-Fi of today. Like, what is your fitness offering at your hotel? And I think that's like, I think part of the driving, like, I would leave with people today to start paying their eye on that. And then also, but then how do we know, we as hoteliers, how do we know when we need to do this? And this is my thing this year is, your suppliers or your service providers or vendors or whatever you want to call them, they are often the brightest minds in your hotel when it comes to answering these questions, right? We had at our event last year, Serta, one of our longtime partners, Serta Simmons, brought in sleep scientists because we're in the business of sleep, right? And the funny thing is, we're terrible at it. Like, we think we're good at it, but we're putting in LED lights. We have curtains that don't close. We put super high thread count sheets onto mattresses that basically, we didn't know this. And their sleep scientists came in and said, listen, you realize if you go super high thread count, you're saran wrapping a mattress, and a mattress is designed to take heat away from your body. So what's the guest going to do? They're going to crank up the AC. So not only are you paying for fancy sheets, the guest is unhappy, and your energy bill goes up. So by realizing that some of our vendors are, you know, they're not just selling to us, they're selling in retail, and they know they know how to use their products, but they also know what the consumer market wants today, what's important for them today and what's coming. And so, you know, I think that's something that I this year's lead is, don't just look at your suppliers and your vendors as like somebody who brings you something or you purchase something from. Think of them as actually the solution or the expertise that you need to make some of these decisions around. Like, don't just go and go, hey, I need 3,000 mattresses. Go to them and say, how can you like help our guests sleep better, or help us understand how to do this better? You know, same thing, but we used coffee as an example earlier. Like, how am I supposed to know about, my guest today wants to know where this coffee was sourced, what kind of bean it is, you know, how am I supposed to know all of this stuff, right? Well, if you have a good coffee supplier, they can tell you, and they can also tell you what the guests are expecting and what's important to them today. And so, you know, that's, I think, something that I feel for us is really important this year, is just really teaching the hoteliers how to look at their partners, just not as suppliers, but also as like as a wealth of knowledge to help them keep up with these guests that are, constantly demanding something new because that's what they have at home now.
And you can't get away with what you could in the past. I feel like, if I'm at a luxury hotel and the coffee in the room is not good, it's poor. Like that's a reason for me not to come back to that luxury hotel as a little, because you just don't expect it. Or you talk about the gym is, when I go to Abu Dhabi, I love staying at the Grand Hyatt. It's one half of the floor is the gym facing the sea, right? It's gorgeous. You get they get it. I love working out. It's a place. And then and then you go to I think it was the St. Regis in Doha, and I go, and it's kind of like in the basement. It's small. Everything is packed in. It's older. You're looking at walls everywhere. And you're this is not the experience that your guests who are coming for, who this is important for them. It's like you have to, every guest has their own passion in, within that space. And you have to be able to accommodate them. And I think it's so much more in the details of what matters to each of them that's important. And if other
and we don't as hoteliers, what do we know about gyms, right? So I also say to our industry has an incredibly high turnover. We always have, we always will, right? And as much as we try to improve that, it's the nature of our business that whatever you bring in, you need to make it something that is, we have a high turnover, and that does tend to hurt sometimes. Us being able to kind of keep up as well with this demand. So not only are we battling to kind of keep our staff and keep our turnovers low, but we're trying to understand what these guests want all the time. And I think that's where you don't need to be an expert, but you can partner with a gym company who can tell you how to run a gym. I mean, as simple as take the equipment you have in there. Let's say you bought really nice equipment, but is it placed correctly in the gym? Do you have, if I walk into one more gym and I look at a bowl of apples and some towels and a plastic water dispenser with paper cups, then I know you're doing the absolute bare minimum. Congratulations, right? But those guests don't want that. They go to the gym 5 times a week and they're traveling and they want to have a similar experience. So you better partner with a gym or get a gym company to help sort that out. And I think that's where I think we don't need to be overwhelmed, right? We just have to look at our partners and find the right partners who are experts at it and say, hey, listen, we don't know anything about gyms, but our guests, it's really important to them. How can we get classes in here? How can we make our gyms better? Help us understand how to do that. So,
and I know again, we're harping on gyms, but I'll go when I was just in Malaysia at the was it the Four St. Regis, and I walk in and they have I travel a lot and I get back pain from long flights, and they have the one piece of the back equipment that just solves all my back pain. And you see it and you're just so excited. And every day I go to work out, but to use that piece of equipment, I'm not a runner like Barak, but it's those things matter. And I think hotels need to ask the experts in the industry versus just saying, we're going to do the bare minimum. We'll have the equipment and that's it. I don't think they understand the importance.
Yeah. So, but their guests understand the importance. And, again, they don't need to know, today's gym, I guess the takeaway is that, today's innovation is tomorrow's baseline, and you need to kind of keep up with that. And that's, I think, what our association has really been trying to help a lot of hoteliers understand is, okay, where are we in the cycle from innovative, cool, you can have it and you can really impress guests, to, the first time I ever saw classes in a gym was when we held an event at the Epic in Miami. In a hotel. And today it's going to be normal. I would say within 2 years, most luxury hotels will have some sort of classes, whether they're virtual or not. So across whatever it is that our guests want, we need to know where they're at in that cycle.
The other thing is, how do you measure and track stuff? So, my wife's traveling to a luxury hotel in 2 weeks, right? And I've WhatsApped the hotel several times because they have a WhatsApp number. They don't answer their phone for some reason a couple times, and they don't respond to WhatsApps. It's been 3 WhatsApps in 48 hours. So someone at that hotel has decided, right, I'm going to implement this technology so guests can communicate with us easier. But what happens when that doesn't happen? And I've had that happen on other trips where they have WhatsApp, they have texting, and it takes hours for people to respond. Then you go to a property where you do it, and there's an instant response, right? So it's, you can go adopt the most cutting edge tech, but are your people trained? Are you measuring it? Are you doing it right and getting that, the benefit out of adopting it?
We'll cover a lot of that stuff at the event, of course. And, this is kind of what we talk about. So I guess we could probably talk for days and hours. We're very passionate, as you can see, about this kind of stuff. But I think to kind of bring it back to the event a little bit and look at what we have coming up. I mean, I think we try to balance a little bit in each category. So one thing you can expect is that there's going to be something, at least 2 or 3 sessions very specific to your niche. And then we highly suggest you go to other topics that maybe you wouldn't normally attend, because you're still going to go to those other shows in your niche, right? This is the one chance you get to go listen to some of the speakers about some things that are very relevant to you, but maybe not something you deal in your day-to-day, especially at events. And then we have some fun stuff around the event as well. We're doing, like, a vendor is one of our biggest partners that I mentioned. I'm speaking at their conference next week. They're doing a whole networking thing for us on the first evening. We have a president's dinner. It's a invitation only event that we do. We don't reveal it until we have a really cool activations company that helps us put it together, and we don't reveal much about it until the time. So I'll leave that one as a come to the event and find out.
Easter egg, yeah.
Come to the event and find out.
There you go.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a lot going on. It's really, I think it's big, but it's a small event in that it's intimate. Like, if you come there for 2 days, you're gonna pretty much get to meet most of the people that are there, and not that many events, I would say, can say that about networking.
Well, that's why I love these preview episodes, because the intentionality behind these conferences, because as attendees, sometimes we just, we show up, we see the agenda, we see all the programming, and, but the intentionality behind your education, your programming, the activations, and the hard work behind that, and the reason why, even from the location to the time of year that you host this show, it's so methodical, it's so cerebral, and what you guys are doing, I'm so excited. I mean, you guys have got me pumped up and energized to go in December. And one thing on wellness and longevity, I mean, we talked at the top of this episode about how luxury travel has a special connection to people, through tradition, and connection, and that longevity, that wellness, you can call it a trend. It's here to stay. I think we've all identified that. That's just the natural next step with luxury, because, it's obviously has a strong connection to our soul. The next part of that is your body, right? So that's what the luxury travel is going to anticipate. Like you were saying, Barak, anticipating the needs before, you're not waiting for those other sectors, like John was saying, for the brand to mandate it. You want to be in front of this. You want to be the trendsetter. And that's what luxury hospitality has always been. It's been the trendsetter for hospitality. So, as we wrap up, I want to ask, it's my first time going, maybe with our audience, considering attending for the first time, what would be one tip from each of you for a first time attendee of this conference? John, we'll start with you.
I think it would be that common phrase, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Just kidding. I would say, be confident, and everyone is very open, right? So don't be intimidated of, oh, I'm going and there's a CEO or an owner or a hospitality management company. Walk up, be friendly, engage people, talk to people. You could pretty much meet almost everybody at our conference, right? I think everyone is very open to networking and connecting, and learning. And so come with that open mind. Don't worry about, oh, is this going to be a cliquish event? So can I just go walk up and talk to the CEO of a hotel or the CEO of a hospitality management company? I think that's one of the best things about our event is you can meet anybody, you can talk to anybody, learn anything. So come with that, and come with that mindset of you're going to be social.
So for me, what I would say is, and I'll back this up. I think that this event, what surprises a lot of people, I think a lot of shows, especially expos, they have sessions. I've spoken at those sessions, and I think that they're not the main purpose of those events. And so when people come, they miss out maybe on a lot of expertise that's given. I think at our event, it's really focused around sessions. Take the time, if you get invited or you buy a ticket or whatever and you come to this event, take the time to go to as many sessions as you can. I've had some of the most experienced hoteliers in the world attend sessions at our event, come out with like notebooks full of stuff, because this event was actually built for the highest level of decision making in the industry. So we really have incredible content. Try to go to that. Everything is recorded and it's going to be given away for free. But I feel like, and at the end of this, over the year, so you'll get access to it. But I feel like if you come in person, it's different. And I would say bring somebody. So the people who come to me, like the ones that really wow me every year are, we'll get like a GM or an MD of a luxury hotel, and they'll bring like a couple of their staff members with them, their team. And the next year they bring like 2 more, and it's like a reward for them because they just said they learned so much at that event, and it just motivates them going into the new year. So I said I would back it up. What I am prepared to do is, because I feel it's really important, I've seen it over the years. If there is any manager, general manager, hotel owner, anybody who would like to bring somebody from their team, we'll give them a pass. So if they buy a pass, we'll give them a pass so that they can bring one of them. Because I know it's not always, it's expensive. The good news is this year, one thing about Resorts World is that we have 2 hotels. So we have the Conrad and we have the Hilton. So you can pretty much find anything for your budget. I think the range is pretty wide with that. But at the same time, like I said, I think it's not just for you. I think we talked about our industry we are in the business of people. We're a people business. And if I learned anything about being in the best hotel in the world, it's that where most other hotels fall short on the service side is that they don't delegate enough expertise to, or even bandwidth to solve guest problems to the people below them, their line team and stuff like that. So I think that to empower them, not just being able to take care of their guests, but also giving them really big picture understanding of what's going on in the industry is very powerful and motivating for them. So again, I advise that anybody that's coming here for the first time, bring somebody from your team and reach out to us and say, hey, Barak said that we get free passes. He'll match whatever we buy. So if you buy 2 passes, I'll give you 2 passes. Because the more of your team you bring, I think the more benefit you're going to have, and it's going to go right through. It's a great way to start your new year.
Yeah, absolutely. And those topics and sessions that you were talking about, Barak, I've heard, are great conversation starters. They're great icebreakers for, what John's, advice was to talk about, how, people are implementing longevity into their hotel brand or into their luxury property. So, there's a lot of continuity there. Really excited for that. Hopefully there will be a lot of Sweet Spot listeners and luxury hoteliers that we meet out in Vegas. Appreciate both of you coming on. As we wrap up today, would love to hear, as co-founders, here we are, 16th edition of the Inspire USA event. You said 3rd edition of the Inspire Europe. What's your vision for the future of ILHA as we move into the back half of the 2020s? John, we'll start with you.
I'm excited. I would say, expansion in other regions of the world. We're working on stuff where there's tremendous innovation and investment in the luxury hotel side. So we're looking at, how we could, I don't know if the right word is diversify, but, have more of a global presence. Like I said, we're doing Europe, we're doing the US and the Americas. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. I think, we've been super successful in being basically the biggest influencer and educator from a digital standpoint, is really looking at how could we take that to the next level. So it's just, very exciting times, and it just the investment we're seeing in luxury hotel projects, or in the luxury wellness and longevity, looking at, how do we help take that to the next level? We're just very excited. I think we're very lucky because we're in this space of innovation and investment, which isn't always happening in other industries.
Yeah, I mean, and also it's interesting. I think we get to see like what's going on around the world. It's kind of fun sitting in, like John speaking about, like as we know here in the U.S., for instance, the investment side is slowing down, right? So in real estate, but we know that in, like, John's very big. He's on his way to Saudi next week. He's involved in a lot of the big projects that are going on in there and in Asia, some of the projects in Asia and stuff like that. So there is stuff booming around the world, and that's what's good as well, is that it, when one area starts to dip, the other area picks up. And so we can kind of give a perspective of that. But I'll also say that the future of ILHA is really not up to us. It never has been. It's always been organic. And it's not John or the organization is hundreds of thousands of people. And what happens is that pockets of those people start to say, hey, we want to do something, right? We have a chapter in LA that just, kind of came up over the last couple of years, and they've been incredibly active. They had an event recently at the Regent for the relaunch of the Regent Santa Monica. Before that, they had another one for the rebranding of W at the W Hollywood. We had another group approach us from London. And so now we have a chapter, they're on their like third event already. And it's run by like the leaders of the Four Seasons, the head of the Claridge's and some of the top luxury hotels, obviously Global Asset Solutions, those kind of companies. So they're coming to us and saying, hey, we were involved in your system. We want to do more, and we want to do some local stuff. Can we take it from there? So the future of our organization has always been by the people. Like, they come to us. We don't plan. We just go with the direction it wants to go. And we've been like that since the beginning. And I think that that's what's helped us really be strong, is not trying to try to steer it in any one direction, but let it go where it's naturally going to go.
Love to hear that. And so cool to see those chapters and, additional events popping up. But, excited for the next chapter, and, honored to be a part of it as well. Travel Media Group, proud members, partners of the ILHA. So thank you so much, John, Barak, for joining me here on the Sweet Spot. Just really teeing off an incredible event that I'm very much looking forward to. I know hoteliers are as well. And we'll see you in Vegas in just a couple months now.
Yeah, and also big thanks to Travel Media Group and yourself for your support and being innovative. Podcasts are you've really been successful at getting your podcast, to have a huge following in the hotel industry, and I think that we are excited to have you guys here and Travel Media Group. What you've done, I think there are not many. As this industry constantly changes, the industry needs partners that are like kind of one step ahead and can guide them, as I've spoken about it. And definitely in the hotel marketing space, you guys are sort of at the forefront of that. So we're excited to partner with you guys as well.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. John, thanks for joining me. Barak, thank you. And like I said, we'll see you in Vegas in just a couple months.
Yep. See you in Vegas.
All right. Thanks for listening to The Sweet Spot. We'll talk to you next time.